myself, Rajabhumi. Takagata actually lives in Las Cruces, but he's part of our yatra. Anita, Naga, Shana, Sejal, Shri, Samantha.
Okay.
This is probably our biggest group to come to Tucson in a while.
Yeah, I've met a number of you, but some of you I haven't met. So. All right, nice. All right, so I'll just lead a short kirtan, and then can you pass that drum, please? I'll just lead a short kirtan, and then we could have a discussion. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare
Jaya
Hare.
Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. All right. How did you get this Prabhupada paint picture here? Oh yeah? Who donated it?
It's a good question. I was one of the previous residents.
Uh-huh. I see. Yeah, Yudhishthir, one of our friends, he painted this painting of Prabhupada. Yudhishthir from San Diego.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful painting. So we have it in the Brahmacharya ashram there in San Diego. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshudhanmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karijavachalam Pangam Langaite Girim Yak Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundinitaranam Vanchakoptarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So sometimes we may wonder if we are having a positive effect on anyone's life, if we're making a difference. Has anyone ever wondered that before? If you have? Okay. Yeah. Because naturally, we may feel like we should be making a difference in someone's life, positive difference. In the lives of our friends, our family, we feel like we should be making some difference. Sometimes there's some doubt about that. Am I really making a difference? Does my existence really, am I doing anything good here? Meaningful. And I mean, if I was to ask all of you in the room here, think of one person in history who has, what means one person in history who has done has made a very negative impact in the world. So there's certain names may go into your minds, right? This person, whoever it is. So, also, I could say, okay, well, now think in your minds of one person who has made a very good difference in the world, positive change in the world. Can you think of anyone in your minds? You're saying yes. Yes? Who are you thinking of? We're old friends. We stayed together, right? We're Christians. Okay. Yes.
I think of King Shivaji Maharaj.
Okay. Would you like to enlighten those who may not be familiar?
Yeah, he's a king in the 16th century, and he fought with the Mughal army, Aurangzeb.
Mm-hmm. So he fought with an army.
Yeah, and he stopped the aggressive mode of Aurangzeb, and he stopped there. Like he tried to establish the Hinduism.
So he fought against a violent opposing army and protected the innocent, this person in history. Yes. So like this, we could think of so many different people. Now, if you think about that within our lives, you could say, now think of, we could be positive here. Think of one person who has positively impacted our life or changed our life. Whether that means within the last 5 years, the last 3 years, last 2 years, last 6 months, we could all, I would hope, think of someone that positively impacted our lives. Can everyone think of someone right now? It's coming in your mind. You're thinking of your wife. She's thinking about you. No, they're very good devotees, so they have a very positive couple from El Paso. A very ideal couple. So in this way, we could think of someone who has positively impacted our lives. So, but again, sometimes we may think about ourselves, okay, what about me? Have I really impacted anybody's life? There's a story, I'm not exactly sure where it's from. Maybe we could look it up or something, but there's a story of one man, elderly man, and he's on a beach. And there's a bunch of starfish that have washed up on the beach. And everyone knows that if starfish spend too much time outside of the ocean, they'll dry up. And people dry them up in decoration or this or that, right? So this elderly man, with all of these hundreds of starfish, he was taking this each individual starfish and throwing it into the ocean, back into the ocean. So, but there was a lot of them, hundreds, maybe thousands, just a lot. So one young boy comes up to him and he asks the elderly man, "Do you really think you're going to make a difference? I mean, there's like hundreds and thousands. Like, do you really think you're going to make a difference?" So then the elderly man, he very slowly goes and gets a starfish and throws it back out into the ocean. And then he tells the young boy, "I just did." So sometimes it may seem that we have to make some huge, big difference, or else what does it really matter? But actually, a lot of the times, even small things matter a lot. For example, I'm thinking of my mother. You know, you've met her, right? A few of you have met her here. She's a good mother, of course. Anyways. But my mother, I remember when we were growing up, she used to bring myself and maybe my sisters at the time. Anyways, she used to, yeah, I'm sure they were around at that time too. She used to bring us to the homes where they take care of the elderly. And she'd go to the people. This was, whatever, back in the 90s. I guess it was a safer world, or maybe it seemed like it was a safer world, but she used to go there and she would ask the people at the front desk, who does not get any visitors here? Because some people, they don't get visitors. Some people, they get a lot of visitors. Some people get a few visitors. Some people get a visitor once a year. There's some people who just don't get any visitors for whatever reasons. So she'd say, who does not get any visitors here? So she would go to them first, and then she would give them some gifts, give them some candy, whatever, give candy, gifts. And she would, I don't know if she would sing to them or read some Bible verse or something like that, but she tried to encourage them in their life. And they were very happy. You can imagine somebody who doesn't get any visitors, and then they get in a visitor. I mean, it could be very moving. So, and there was a spiritual element to that. She was sharing some spiritual wisdom. So, but if we think of our own lives, we think about the lives of others, there may be very small things that we do that seriously impact people's lives, and we may not even know that. We may not realize that. So, of course, when we think of Srila Prabhupada, the founder, Acharya of the Hare Krishna movement, if we have heard about him, read about him, studied his life, we may naturally think of him and how he positively impacted the world. Specifically, those born or raised in America, they may think of how Srila Prabhupada came to America. And that story is very common, and it's not something that should be glossed over or forgotten or something like that. It's a very important story, how Srila Prabhupada came to America, how he established Krishna consciousness, how he traveled around the world and established Krishna consciousness throughout the world. So, but naturally, being in America, we may tend to focus on that. But one thing to consider is that Srila Prabhupada, just as it was his first time to America, it was his first time to many countries throughout the world. First time to South Africa, first time to Australia, first time to Germany, first time to Africa, first time to New Zealand, first time to Russia. So, and all of these, first time to Venezuela, all of these in themselves are accounts in which devotees have written books about. Like Srila Prabhupada's time in Venezuela, for example. There's a book about it. Srila Prabhupada's time in Germany. Srila Prabhupada's time in Australia. They've all written books about his visits to these different places and how he positively impacted them. And sometimes it was just for a very short time, like a week or something. So there's a case of Srila Prabhupada visiting Russia. And even now, it's a little difficult for the devotees in Russia based on the government and the regulations of the government and them being very like an iron fist. So devotees had to be very careful, and still they're being harassed more or less after all these years. Similarly with China, for example. So, but Srila Prabhupada went there in 1971, which at the time there was a line down Europe, right? The Western Bloc, the Eastern Bloc, and one was for capitalism, and one was for communism, and it was a intense thing. The whole world was scared, actually, at the time. I think there's going to be a nuclear holocaust or something because of this differences of opinion. They're having wars in Vietnam and so on, United States, Russia. So Srila Prabhupada, he thought, let me go now. Let me go behind the Iron Curtain. Called it Iron Curtain. And that time in Russia, it was extremely intense time to go. But he said, let me go there at that time. So him, along with two of his disciples, Aravinda and Shama Sundar, they decided to go, and they got all the documents, and off they went to Russia. So when Srila Prabhupada arrived in Russia, Moscow, there was one Ekaterina. That's, I guess, how you say, what's the American version? Katerina, or I don't know, whatever. Ekaterina, we know one Bhaktin Ekaterina from Russia. She visited San Diego. But Ekaterina, very common name, she was their guide. So she greeted them at the airport. Srila Prabhupada and Shamasundar went in. And when they were going through customs, Srila Prabhupada made it through easily. Aravinda made it through easily. And Shamasundar was there. And he was going through customs. So these Russian officials, this guy, he opens up Shamasundar's suitcase, and then he looks, and then Shamasundar looks, and there's a Bhagavad Gita there, and an easy journey to other planets. And before they went to Russia, they were told, do not bring any religious books. Pretty much they're banning religion at the time. Do not, especially foreign religions, but do not bring any religious books. Do not bring any religious pictures. Don't bring any of this. It could be a problem. So they open it up, and Shamasundar sees a Bhagavad Gita in an easy journey, and he didn't put it there. Because he followed this, and he understood that this is dangerous. I shouldn't bring this in. So it was planted in his suitcase, a Bhagavad Gita and an easy journey. And who was it planted by? His wife, Malati Devi, those who know her. She was thinking there should be a Bhagavad Gita taken to Russia. There should be an easy journey taken to Russia. So, but he was just, it said when he saw that book, his heart just stopped. And he was seeing these red lights flashing in his mind, and he was thinking they're going to ship him off to Siberia or something. He was just like really freaked out. And then the Russian official, the person, he opens up the Bhagavad Gita, and about 20 pictures just fall out on the ground. Pictures of Radha, pictures of Krishna, pictures of Srila Prabhupada. They just all fall on the ground. And he's thinking, oh my God. So then the different people are picking them up, and then this guard picks them up. And Shamasundar writes that this guard's face, out of anger or frustration, he was like beet red. His face was red. And he just motioned to him. He closed the book, and he closed his suitcase, and he just said, go, move on. So he let him through with the books. So they go to the hotel where they're staying in Moscow, and they go up to the hotel room, and outside they hear all types, like a parade going on. So then they look outside, and they see a bunch of soldiers marching down the street with tanks also marching down the street, and they're playing whatever they're playing, some type of music. And then Srila Prabhupada looks out the window and he sees this. And apparently this was a reoccurring event. Every Sunday they would have it. This through the streets of Moscow. So then Srila Prabhupada said, you cannot run a nation on fear. You cannot run a nation on fear. The people will not be happy. It's not going to work. And he said, just like all of this, and he pointed outside, he said, all of this will be gone in 20 years. The people aren't happy. How will this continue? So that was his prediction. It would be gone in 20 years. So after that, Shamasundar, he went out to find some food. That's kind of feed Srila Prabhupada himself. So he went out to find some food, which was a whole mission in and of itself. Eventually found some dairy products and some cabbage, this and that, some potatoes, and then he just went back. And so that was day one. That was their day one. So Srila Prabhupada was only there for 5 days. So day 2, Srila Prabhupada goes out to the famous Red Square in Moscow. He's walking there. There's some famous pictures that Shamasundar takes of Srila Prabhupada walking there in Red Square. And Srila Prabhupada takes a tour of the town as morning walk. And yeah, in a bus, he takes this tour of the city. He's seen all of these different famous places. And later on in the day, when Shamasundar goes out to collect food, which again is a huge task. He's waiting in line. He's like searching all of. He could hardly find any food, vegetarian food. So while he's out there, this looks like this gang of young men. They see him, and they come up to him, and they just grab him. Sorry, just they grab him by the kurta. No, I'm just joking. I would never do that to
Something I would ask. What they ask is something I would ask.
They grab him by the kurta. I guess Shamasundar was wearing a kurta, so it works. So they grab him by the kurta. He was wearing kurta and dhoti, by the way. So they grab him by the kurta, and they just slam him against the wall. And then they start pulling at his shika, and they actually slap him in the face. And then in his American accent, he says, like, what are you doing? And I have my documents. I'm part of the hotel, this and that. And he tries to say how Lenin is good and all of this. Tries to kind of. And then the people leave him alone. They think, okay, maybe this guy's like a communist supporter or whatever. They just leave him alone. So then he continues looking for his vegetables and fruits, and while he's in line, one person comes up to him, and he says, "Are you a yoga?" I guess it's whatever. And he says, I'm a bhakti yoga. And the guy says, okay, great. He says, me and my friends, we meet regularly and we do yoga. So come to this address, and there'll be a dark hallway. And my was like, oh God, this doesn't sound inviting, right? There'll be a dark hallway, and you'll see light coming out of the door. So Shamasundar thinks in his mind, all right, this sounds cool. So he decides in his mind to go. So later he brings the vegetables back to Srila Prabhupada, and he tells how he met these men, and they're inviting him to yoga. And then what does Srila Prabhupada say? He says, don't go. He says, these are KGB, these are these official people in Russia, and they're trying to entrap us. He said, don't go. So Shamasundar gave the idea. He didn't go. So that was the second day. Third day, he met Professor Katowski, and he had a long conversation with him. And they were talking about so many different things, philosophical points. Srila Prabhupada brought up communism naturally. And Srila Prabhupada was saying the spiritual idea behind communism is that God owns everything. And yes, everyone should be fed and everyone should be taken care of. And he said in our Vedic civilization, it is the duty of grihastas, householders, before they have their meal, they walk outside. And they say, is anybody hungry? We'll feed anyone. And Srila Prabhupada said, which I'm not exactly sure why snakes, or I forgot the other entity he named, but he said even if there's a snake living in your house, yes, you feed that, like a wild snake. You feed that. So anyways, he was going over this, and he was, of course, making the points he would make quite often that human form of life is not for sense gratification is for God realization. You are a spirit soul. So we're having this long conversation. One thing that came from that conversation with Professor Katowski is that Srila Prabhupada would quote it quite often after his visit with Katowski in his lectures. He would say, yes, I have visited a famous professor, Professor Katowski. And he says that when the body dies, everything's finished. Everything's finished. There's no eternal soul. He said, this is unintelligent. He said, the soul's eternal. And he would explain that through Bhagavad Gita. So he met with Professor Katowski, and then, again, Shamasundar went out to collect their food for that day. And while he was collecting some food for Srila Prabhupada and the party, he saw one Indian man who happened to be from Jaipur. It's a famous place in India. So he saw one Indian man from Jaipur, Shamasundar. And the man was saying that to Shamasundar, don't go to the bank, you don't need to go to the bank. I could exchange your American dollars for Russian, what do they call?
Rubles.
Rubles, for Russian rubles. And, like that. So while he was speaking with this person, this Indian man's friend came. He came as a Russian, Anatoly, is that how you say it? Anatoly, yeah. Anatoly, he came. And Anatoly, he asked Shamasundar, he said, do you have any jeans I could buy? Like pants. This was hard to get at that time. And Shamasundar, he looked down and he said, I'm wearing a robe, I don't have any jeans. And then Anatoly said, how about some Beatles records? Do you have some Beatles records? I guess those were hard to find too. And then Shamasundar said, well, the guru of the Beatles is in the hotel room. I could introduce him to you if you want. Just talking about Srila Prabhupada. And Anatoly said, yes, that's a very good idea. So then Shamasundar, he brought Anatoly and this Indian boy, Jaipur, up to see Srila Prabhupada. And when these two boys walk in, Srila Prabhupada, it says that he was beaming just like the sun. He was so happy to see them. And they were happy to see Srila Prabhupada, and it was like they knew each other. So they sat down, they started speaking, they spoke for a number of hours. And Anatoly had some natural inclination to spirituality, to yoga, he was doing yoga himself. So he was asking Srila Prabhupada a lot of questions about the origin of Sanskrit and so many different things. And that was the third day. So eventually, Anatoly, he went home. And then what happened? So Srila Prabhupada, he went out on another walk, and I would think it's still there, but what people do is they go see the entombed body of Lenin. He's the father of communism, right? One of the main. So they go to see the entombed body of Lenin, the dead body of Lenin. So they're lining up to see. And Srila Prabhupada, seeing them, he said, just see. They're going to see a dead person, and we're seeing beautiful dancing Krishna everywhere. So just see the difference. So while they're walking around, Shamasundar, he tells Srila Prabhupada, he says, Srila Prabhupada, you see the man in the suit there with the tie reading the newspaper? And then Srila Prabhupada says, yes. And Shamasundar says, that person I've been seeing for the last few days, wherever I go. And then Srila Prabhupada said, yes, he's a KGB. He's following us. And Srila Prabhupada says, we are dangerous persons. So, so they continue like that, and Anatoly, he comes back to see Srila Prabhupada. So, and this was the last day, the 5th day that Srila Prabhupada was in Russia. He comes back to see him, and then Srila Prabhupada just like outlines everything. God is a person, his name's Krishna, the process of self-realization is chanting Hare Krishna. Shamasundar gave him his beads to chant on. And they taught him how to make chapatis, because that's an important factor in Krishna consciousness, how to make chapatis. Everybody should know the art. And Shamasundar gave him Bhagavad Gita, Malati's Bhagavad Gita. So, and in this way, Srila Prabhupada, he just spent 5 days there in Russia. And practically that other Indian man didn't show much interest, but Anatoly, he became an initiated devotee, Ananta Shanti. And from him, there was a whole underground movement. They would get Bhagavad Gita and they'd copy it by hand, and they were out there distributing amongst this heavy government. Everything was underground. So like hundreds of devotees, not thousands of devotees, through his preaching and the preaching that came from him, Ananta Shanti. Despite like very intense situations, they would bring devotees to jail, asylums. Just really terrible stuff happened in Russia. But still, despite all of that, Krishna consciousness spread. And that was just Srila Prabhupada's 5 days in Russia. So in this way, he changed the world, actually, just in 5 days. And Ananta Shanti, he's just one person, and he did so much good for others there in Russia. So, and fast forward 20 years later, because Srila Prabhupada made that prediction, in 20 years the whole thing will be finished. And then it'll just, the Iron Curtain fell. And so Shamasundar writes that this was the most powerful display of Srila Prabhupada's mysticism that he ever saw. That he was able to meet this person, Anatoly. He was able to convince him of Krishna consciousness, convince him to be a devotee, and then from him, so many people became devotees. So going back to this idea that sometimes we may doubt ourselves. Okay, well, can I really make a difference in the world, or can I make a difference in the lives of people around me, or the society, or community, or Tucson, or El Paso, or San Diego, or whatever, wherever. We may wonder, can I really? But we can. And this is one example, and there's many examples like this. And in many times, some of us sitting here, I'm sure all of us have, we all, not that I'm sure, but I'm 100% sure, we all have our unique story and how there have been people in our lives who have positively impacted us in our Krishna consciousness. So when we go out to give someone a book, don't underestimate the Bhagavad Gita. When we give someone an easy journey to other planets, don't underestimate that. When we teach someone how to chant, whatever we do, when we try to give Krishna consciousness, we shouldn't underestimate it, because there might be someone we meet and that person just really takes off in their Krishna consciousness, and that is in that way making a difference. We're making a difference. Before we came here to Tucson, it was a chat with Naveen and Dharmaraj. Here's Naveen. And Dharmaraj is back there. And the shade of the living room. He is listening though. No, we've known Dharmaraj almost, I don't know, kind of his whole life. So, anyways, we're driving here from San Diego, and before we left San Diego, we stopped off at a grocery store, and I was showing Dharmaraj and Naveen. I said, "Oh, this was my high school I went to, and this is where I worked. This was my high school." And then I brought him to the grocery store. There's a grocery store because we needed to pick up something. We stopped there in the parking lot and had breakfast. And I said, this is a place I first got one of Srila Prabhupada's books when I was 16 years old. So I'm 37 now. So I was walking out of that store and in El Cajon, and one devotee was there. He was sitting there in a wheelchair. He's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada named Radhanath Das, and he had some disease in which he had his legs amputated from the knees down. And his body was completely emaciated, could hardly move. He had to have an assistant help him. But his principle was that he would go out and distribute Prabhupada's books 5 days a week, post offices, grocery stores. So he was sitting in this random place, like no one goes to El Cajon. I've been in the temple for 18 years, and you never hear any book distribution scores. Yes, they're out in El Cajon. You don't hear it. So he's this kind of random place. And then I walked out with my mother, and then he handed me a book, Perfection of Yoga, based on the Gita. And I read it, and I was very impressed by Srila Prabhupada's explanation of the science of self-realization, God realization. And from that book, I visited the temple, and then when I was 17, and then I started practicing Krishna consciousness, and then I joined the temple when I was 18. And yeah, and I've been in the temple since then, and it's been a wonderful journey, and I don't regret that at all. But it's also just another small example of one small book, wasn't even a Bhagavad Gita, one small book, changing somebody's life. So yeah, we should try to keep that in mind when we're trying to help others. All right, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Guru. As usual, beautiful class.
Yeah,
I'm sure not to embarrass you to share to your point. I'm not going to go overboard with it, but I've met many people around America, at least 2 or 3, who said, "Oh, Balarama in San Diego, he changed my life." Sorry, that people who passed through and then now they're devotees, and they say, "Oh, I met this Balaram Das, and now my life has changed." So, in any case, you make a difference in people's lives, and it goes to show how it's a chain reaction from that book. So,
thank you.
You make a difference in my life also. So, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Kirtaneshwara. Hare Krishna. Any other comment or question?
Yeah, I want, if I may ask, we share. Oh, thank you so much. I thought it was a very nice class.
Okay.
I remember hearing about the incredible explosion in the devotional life of the Russian devotees after Srila Prabhupada went, and I just wonder how is everything in Russia right now, as far as there's just so many different things. There's a lot of Russians in Mayapur now, or anything you'd like to share about how the Russian devotees are doing?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Well, yeah. So after Srila Prabhupada left, Ananta Shanti, so many devotees that became devotees, and then one of my friends told me that he's a Prabhupada disciple, and he said that he remembers the first time the Russian devotees came to Mayapur. So him and a bunch of Americans and people from other countries and so on. They're all there in Mayapur for the yearly festival, which thousands of devotees go to. At that time, I'm sure it was significantly less, but now there's quite a lot. So they were there, and while the Russian devotees were coming, it was back in the, I guess in the early or late 80s or something, but they had all these sirens going off. And they were saying, the Russian devotees are coming, the Russian devotees are coming. And he said growing up as a child, in America, it was a different feeling, like the Russians are coming, like, this is a problem, like it's like war or something. But when the Russians were coming, they're all coming as Vaishnavas, they're devotees. So then they all greeted each other and very happy to see each other. And but yeah, from that time going forward, there's been more and more devotees, and now when you go to Mayapur, there's a lot of Russian devotees there, and it's just increasing over there, quite a lot. They say like India is where a lot of people are becoming devotees, and the second place is Russia. A lot of people becoming devotees over there.
So would you say that there are more Russian devotees than there are American devotees?
I'm not sure.
I've heard some statistic that
Oh,
they
really?
don't know how many. My spiritual master was speaking with one of the GBCs in Russia, either Chaitanya Chandracharan or Bhaktivedanta Maharaj. They were saying they don't know how many devotees there are, but they think there's more than they would estimate. There's probably more. So there's really no way of knowing at this point, but there's a lot. Is what they were saying. It's quite a significant amount of devotees.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Nice talking story. Appreciate the Russian story. I was just thinking about courage and Krishna consciousness. Seemed like the theme, and I was trying to think if I have anything like that. And I was thinking that sometimes, like going down 4th Avenue, it feels a little
last
scary
night.
to go do Harinam, And even when I feel like that, usually by like at least 20 minutes in, I feel more comfortable and happy to be doing Harinam, and that courage comes out. And I was wondering if you have any experiences like that in
my
your
God,
years
please, don't ask me that. I'm just joking. Yeah, I like going to places that are difficult. I find great happiness there. For example,
He comes to Tucson.
You think it's difficult? I come to Tucson because I'm not sure. I mean, I come to Tucson. I like Tucson. I like coming to Tucson. You're here. All the devotees are here. Yeah, I like coming to Tucson. And I don't think it's necessarily difficult, but anyways. That guy was difficult last night, though. There's a guy in Harinam, he really didn't like Kirtaneshwar. He was yelling at him, it was the whole thing. I mean, he's yelling at us. He didn't like the Harinam party, the chanting
He was
party.
dancing too.
Anyways. So, but in terms of other places, I had a choice. Yeah, I could say I had a choice. I mean, free will. I had a choice to go to different places. But where I decided to go first was mainland China. And there, it's difficult because of the government as well. So I had to go undercover, like shirt, pants. I went with one brahmachari, Mukunda, one time, and I went with another brahmachari, Hasagrami. But I thought it was really nice, like I felt a lot of inspiration there because it was a kind of undercover, difficult thing. And I haven't been back for a while, but I went there 2019 and then 2021. So, of course, anyways, yeah. So, but it was great. And then after that, the place I wanted to go was Turkey, which is a one is a communist country, the other one is a Islamic, yeah, largely not. It's a bit westernized, but so yeah, I like going to those places. Um, but interesting enough is that sometimes when I at our Sunday feast in San Diego, I look at the crowd, and I was part of my thing. I have to go and talk with people and interact with people, give them books and stuff. So sometimes in my mind, I'm thinking, oh God, like kind of shy or like go and speak with people. I kind of have a difficult time sometimes. But just like you said, um, after some time passes and I go and speak with people, it's no problem. So one of Vaisheshika Prabhu's mantras or methods is he says, in terms of book distribution, because it could be a scary thing, you're going out there and meeting strangers and giving them books, it's like very challenging. So he said, just put your foot on the pavement. That's it. It means drive out there and put your foot on the pavement, and then you reach success. So yeah, I think everyone has that experience. Sometimes it could be a little challenge, but we just have to push ourselves.
Sometimes the tougher it is, the nicer it can end up being.
Yeah.
Experienced.
Yeah. Any other question? Yes.
We were thank you for the nice class. We were just reading the pastime of Prabhupada in Russian. One thing that was really amazing is it almost seemed like nothing was happening.
Mm-hmm.
The Prabhupada was sitting in the room,
Mm-hmm.
and they were going out to get vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden, he makes the devotee that will end up spreading Krishna consciousness, throughout Russia. So it's just incredible how Prabhupada just had so much faith.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's like nothing was happening, but there's a lot happening. Yes.
Yeah. What happened to Ananta Shanti? Did something, he had some type of incident happen later on, or did?
I don't think so. I mean, Shama Sundar met him years later. There's pictures of them meeting and speaking. But, I mean, one thing Ananta Shanti told Srila Prabhupada is that he said it'd be much easier if I had a foreign wife. That's what he told him. And then Srila Prabhupada said, oh, don't worry, I could arrange that. And while they're on the plane, Srila Prabhupada was speaking with Shama Sundar, and he said, oh, Ananta Shanti, he wants a foreign wife, so you have any ideas? And Shama Sundar said, yes, I was thinking of Mandokini from London, Bury Place. I was thinking her, Srila Prabhupada. And then Srila Prabhupada said, yes, I was thinking her too. Originally from France. So Prabhupada asked her to, and she did it. She just went over there to Russia and married him, and they spread Krishna consciousness. And she explains that it was difficult for her for different reasons. She has her side of the story too. So, yeah. But so you can imagine that, being in that situation, you get like a letter from Srila Prabhupada. Yes, I want you to please go to Russia, and so. Anyways.
Thank you.
But I don't know like heavy details of what exactly happened to him. Yeah. Is any other question? Comment?
It didn't end up, nothing ended up happening with the KGB stuff?
No, nothing happened. Well, one thing is some devotees, they saw this and they got this, but I'll just show those who did not get this. there's a devotee named Mahatma Das, and he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And he's a very thoughtful devotee. He has written a number of books, and he gives a number of different seminars on different topics. And I always appreciated his ideas and so on. I attended one of his japa seminars like 2009. But anyways, so he wrote one book on japa, which Srila Prabhupada said is one of the most important things in our spiritual life, if not the most important thing. When we get initiated, practically it's the only thing our guru asks us to do is to chant 16 rounds. He asks us not to do certain things, but the only thing he asks us to do is chant 16 rounds at the initiation time. So he wrote one book, but this is a second book he wrote about japa. It's called Japa Affirmations. It's a very small book. And I'll just read an excerpt from the book, brief, small excerpt from the book. So the affirmation is, maybe we should read a different one because the devotees already heard this one the other day, but I think it's still good. I am a morning monk. And like I said the other day, not like morning like you're depressed, but morning like morning, noon, evening. I'm a morning monk. If I live like a monk in the early morning by focusing solely on my japa, avoiding any other activities or distractions. If we don't live in a temple, we face one fundamental challenge that can undermine good japa: life itself. Life is busy, distracting, and spiritually draining at times. There are innumerable things that can distract us from our japa and innumerable ways to be distracted. Since life happens, those of us living outside the temple are exposed to more challenges to our japa than devotees living in the temple. The solution is to become a morning monk. In other words, for a number of hours in the morning, we need to live like monks in a temple, doing our sadhana, spiritual practices, free of distraction. So then he continues on, but there's I believe 20 affirmations here, and he gives his understanding of them. And yeah, I think it's a nice little book. So yes.
I wanted to share that. So Bala had one, and I'm kind of anal retentive, so I was like, where is 1.0 or 2.0? So we started doing 1.0, and it really does make a difference. Like, I started doing it since Friday.
Nice.
Well, it's only Saturday, but in those 2 days, so I put the books next to our bedside now, but I've had them in the morning. I read and stuff, and I was doing the affirmations and then writing them.
Oh, nice.
And that really, like, all day just kept going.
Oh, that's good.
Ringing in my head over and over again. So it's actually really powerful. And
Yeah.
short.
Yeah.
And so, anyone can just do it. It takes
Yeah.
20 seconds to read.
Yeah, that's what's great about it. It's just so short. You just right before you start chanting, for example, you just read this little short affirmation. Yeah, so it's very helpful. So these are tiny books. So if you like, you could take one for your friends or your family or yourself. And because it's a tiny book, you give a tiny donation. I mean, whatever little donation you want to give, that's fine. But yeah, the books are here. I think there's like 10 of them. So
One more plug for the book is that there's one Brahmin, or one devotee in Mayapur, Janmastami Das, you may know. Janmastami, Balagopi.
yeah, I know Janmastami.
Janmastami Prabhu is obsessed with that book.
Oh yeah.
And he gives that book to every single member, anybody who comes to Mayapur Institute, because he found that he gives that book. And he sits in the Samadhi, which is where people chant japa in Mayapur. Anytime he sees devotees that he doesn't recognize, he goes and gives them a copy for free. And he tells them, do it, it'll change your life. And so he's very adamant. And it says, he's been chanting Hare Krishna for over 50 years. It says it's changed his life, and it's been very helpful in my japa. And so I was in Mayapur 2 weeks ago. I sat down, I just paid my ways in John Masmi Prabhu, and he gave me this part 2, and I find it even more inspiring than part 1. So
I started with part 1 because I couldn't do part 2 without part. But I did part 2 before he told me where part 1 was, and I loved the first one. I was like, "This is amazing," because it's all about gratitude. So it was perfect.
Nice. All right.
Balarama Prabhu ki
Jai.
jai. So we're gonna have arti and kirtan now, and Krishna Charan, do you want to do the arti for the deities, or do you want to sing?
I'll do the archie.
You want to do the arti?
Yeah.
Okay. And you have to include these deities too.
Yes, the whole bunch, the whole bunch. Got it.
And then Balaram, did you want to sing?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a few.
Oh. Should I take this thing off now?
You guys go to the restaurant?
Well, thank you.
And that's for you personally. For you.
All right.